We're taking a live look right now as Carter's remains are being transported to the Carter Presidential Center. He's on his way to Atlanta right now. He's set to arrive there around 3:45 p.m. and there's going to be a service at 4 p.m. Well, as promised, I do want to bring in our next guest, Jenny Lincoln. She has been the Carter Center's principal advisor for Latin America and the Caribbean since 2015, and we're welcoming her to Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Okay, so first question we have for you. How have you at the Carter Center been preparing for the arrival of President Carter?
There is a flurry of activity all over the center, both inside and outside, preparing to receive President Jimmy Carter, who will be saying goodbye, and we will say goodbye to him, and his first event here on 5 days of a goodbye to a great humanitarian, a defender of human rights, and a supporter of democracy in the hemisphere, our boss.
Yes, absolutely. Again, showing that look right now as he is on his way to Atlanta. Can you walk us through just a little bit more what's going to be happening a little bit later today at the Carter Center? As I mentioned, there is going to be a ceremony a bit later tonight.
Yes, and I would like to highlight the fact that he and Mrs. Carter chose to have their arrivals, the first part of their farewells, at the Carter Center. Keep in mind that President Carter was 56 when he left the White House. And so he had almost a half a century after that in a career that was to build and support the Carter Center. So they made the decision to have their first ceremony with the staff here at the Carter Center. So there's been quite a bit of activity this morning preparing for that with press interviews and preparations for the event where he will lie in repose, and the citizens will be welcome to come after 6 o'clock tonight to also pay their respects to President Jimmy Carter.
We were showing an image here just moments ago on Live Now outside of the Carter Center, and we're seeing flowers being laid, American flags, lots of people paying their respects. Can you just talk about that community response and what you've been seeing?
Before I came in here, I walked across the sign of the Carter Center, which is where people are leaving mementos, and it's a wide stretch of treasures that are being left: flowers, flags, teddy bears, peanuts, and so it's both symbols of his life, but also recognition of the things that he has done for the world too. There are international symbols and local Georgia symbols. So it's a contribution of individuals just walking up and leaving something, leaving notes, messages for President Carter.
You mentioned there that people have been leaving peanuts, and I don't think a lot of people realize that he was a peanut farmer. Can you speak just a little bit about his life and where he came from for us?
Well, it's an interesting American success story. This is a man from a very, very, very small town in a rural area of Georgia, a state from the South. And he rose to become the President of the United States. He brought with him a heritage that was deeply, deeply entrenched in the human factor. He was a personal president. He brought stories to the presidency, and he wanted people's stories. He wanted to understand people's problems and what they needed. And he spent his life in service to humanity, if you will. I'd like to mention about Georgia. And Georgia was not a state that was of great broadcast throughout the United States. And when he became president, there was a question of Jimmy who when he became the candidate. And then he moved on to the national and international stage. For example, when he was governor of Georgia, he brought the meeting of the Organization of American States the International Organization of Latin American Countries, he brought their annual meeting to Georgia, the first time that it had been outside Washington, D.C., where their headquarters is. He focused on local needs, state needs, national needs, and international needs. And that was his life, along with his partner, Mrs. Carter.
And another key thing that he did during his life was the founding of the Carter Center back in 1982 with his wife, Rosalynn. What does the future of the Carter Center look like, and how will you continue to carry on his legacy?
Well, he has left a tremendous legacy, and the founding principles of the Carter Center to wage peace, to fight disease, and build hope have been inculcated in the staff. There is a trained staff that is ready to take on those principles and keep going. Keep in mind that we haven't had the active participation of President Carter for the past half a dozen years. And yet the Carter Center continues to be very, very respected internationally and nationally as a significant non-governmental organization with an independent stance that is very inclusive, very significant to President Carter, that you reach out to all sides, all people. And that was a symbol of his life, and he has shared that with the staff here.
For those who may want to come and pay their respects a little bit later today, is there anything that people should know before they head there?
Well, they should know that there's a process. There is and that you can't just walk up and come into the Carter Center. There is a process of going to a parking lot at the Martin Luther King parking. I'm being corrected here.
The proposed starts at 7. The public can come wait in line.
They can't. If they can walk up, yes. They can walk up. Forgive me. I need to share.
You've got a lot of information. You've got it.
They walk up but they stand in line to come in and pay respects where he will lie in repose at the Carter Center.
Jenny, is there any other final thoughts that you may have? Anything you want people to know about the former president, or just any other final thoughts you have?
Final thought is to ask people to share this week the celebration of the life of a great humanitarian, a defender of human rights, a proponent of democracy, and to keep in mind that with some of the polarization that we're experiencing in the United States and in the world, that the way that conflicts may be resolved is with people listening to each other and making an effort. And that was the significance of his life.
That's a beautiful message too. Jenny Lincoln with the Carter Center, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, I do want to take you back out to that live look right now as former President Jimmy Carter being transported again to the Atlanta area. He's heading to the Georgia Capitol for the last time. The Georgia State Patrol Honor Guard, as well as members of President Carter's gubernatorial Georgia State Patrol detail, will also be present there. Carter will be recognized for his service as governor from 1971 to 1975 and as senator from 1963 to 1967. And again, after that, his remains are being transported to the Carter Presidential Center for an arrival ceremony at 3:45 today, as well as the service at 4 p.m. The service will feature remarks from Carter's son, Chip Carter, as well as his grandson and others. There's going to be musical selections such as Eternal Father, Strong to Save. And again, Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum Director Meredith Evans, the Carter Center CEO, and Carter Center staff member and longtime friends of the Carters will join dignitaries for the service. So a lot of people that are going to be turning out for this a little bit later tonight. Finally, the last detail I'm going to leave you here with is Carter will be received with full military honor guards and pallbearers representative of all 6 military branches with America the Beautiful and Be Thou My Vision being performed by the 782nd Army Band out of Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And again, you are taking that live look as we do see the motorcade heading over to the Atlanta area.